Over the last week, there's been a topic I keep seeing comments of in my videos, live streams, and other channels as well, mentioning within their video titles, and it's about Square Enix acknowledging the success of Expedition 33, and the actual details around that topic are kind of being twisted. Seeing videos of people saying Square Enix is embarrassed by Expedition 33, and people asking me if I think Square Enix was embarrassed by Expedition 33. And reading the actual words expressed around it, none of that actually comes to mind. They simply were in a shareholder meeting acknowledging the success of Expedition 33, and someone within that shareholder meeting made a statement that he would like to see that the new Dragon Quest games and Final Fantasy games also be turn-based, and highlighted Expedition 33's success as an example, which Square Enix responded that they are aware of Expedition 33 and believe that the command-based RPGs are the origin of Square Enix, that they value the genre of command-based RPGs and plan to continue delivering such games in the future. There's also a weird spin I'm seeing where, specifically this article, Final Fantasy reportedly returning to turn-based after Clair Obscur's successes. I don't think that exactly means that. And maybe Final Fantasy 17, that could be the case if FF9 remake really is a thing. I would love to see that still retain turn-based. But I think this topic of discussion is more so aimed towards Final Fantasy 16. Final Fantasy 16 was the wildest departure from any of the systems that Square Enix has instilled in their Final Fantasy games over the years. We've seen them go from turn-based to ATB, then hybrid systems like Final Fantasy 12 and 13, leaning into a more action-style approach of Final Fantasy 15, and then FF7 remake, in my opinion, striking the perfect balance and being literal gold for the company. I honestly think Square Enix struck gold with FF7 Remake's combat system, and that should be a focus for their games, or at least a template going forward on how they should do their games. Now, if you ask me about Dragon Quest, I don't think that's a game that's ever not going to be turn-based, but the devs did try to do something new with Final Fantasy 16, and that didn't gel well with the old school fans, and it also did not bring on as many newcomers as they'd hoped. While there are plenty that do love Final Fantasy 16's system and found it to be very engaging and enjoyable, Square Enix themselves don't necessarily feel like that was the case. And I'm gonna be 100% honest with you guys, when it comes to the topic of discussion, when it's relating to FF7 Remake and Rebirth's combat system, and asking me, personally, if I think that it was a mistake or that if they should go back to turn-based, I'm a little biased. I don't know if you guys know the channel's history, but our channel it really took off. It actually really started taking off when Final Fantasy VII Remake came out, with all of our combat guides and different builds and whatnot that we did over the years. I mean, if you go back to the catalog, it's a main staple for the channel and how people found out about us, and I'm forever grateful for it, but I do have a little bit of biasness towards it. Biasness aside though, I mean, the game system is really good, and I think that it's a great evolution of turn-based, finding a way to take ATB systems and kind of give us a little bit more of an expansion of what Parasite Eve was. If you guys remember, Parasite Eve did have an ATB bar you had to roam around until you built it up and then could unleash attacks within them. A lot of people bring up Baldur's Gate into this conversation, but I'm gonna keep it real with you guys. When I see people talk about Baldur's Gate, it's never really about the turn-based system. It's always about the characters, the incredibly well done story, the Dungeons and Dragons elements, and quite literally the variety of different things that you can fuck. I think the outcome of this is great if Square Enix decides to make future titles, not necessarily only Final Fantasies, but just future titles that are turn-based, more of the mainstream, higher budget ones, I think. Any of you guys already know how much I love Expedition 33. I'm the biggest fan of this game on the planet. If you go through, if you go back the last 2 months, all of my content was literally Expedition 33, and we just had such a fantastic time with it. Talking theories, gameplay stuff, breaking the game, and just pushing numbers as far as we can, and it's just been a really wild ride and a really incredible, well done game. Fantastic story, immaculate music. The gameplay is crazy. It is turn-based, but they've taken it a whole step further, not necessarily introducing the defensive or reactive based turn-based system, because many other old Squaresoft games, Mario RPG series as well, have always had that. It's more so the elements around it and how exactly they feel in the combat. The feedback of the controller when you land 6 parries in a row, netting you a team-wide counter to decimate an enemy and just delete them. They basically found a way to mimic the satisfaction that you feel in Souls games when you're getting absolutely demolished by a boss over and over again, and you finally overcome that challenge. They were able to replicate that in Expedition 33's combat, at least for the first playthrough for many players, and that alone is a huge selling point. And very smart decision on their part to make the game only $50, which is an incredible deal. By the way, you can actually get Expedition 33 right now for $34. Shout out to Instant Gaming for sponsoring this video. I'll be linking this down below. If you guys want Expedition 33 on PC, you can totally get it right now for $34. Fantastic game. That is a crazy steal If you haven't played this yet, I 100% recommend it, especially if you loved Final Fantasy X and turn-based games. You need to play this game. Complaining about Final Fantasy not being turn-based anymore, this is the game right here for you. And quite frankly, the story itself is about 30 to 40 hours long, but the replayability has been incredible. I started playing this game for review on April 7th, and I finished it on April 12th. As a matter of fact, let me pull that up right quick. Look, check this out. This was my first... April 7th was when I first started playing Expedition 33. This is the first episode that I did over here. And if we scroll down, I literally finished it a couple days later over here. Exactly, April 12th at actually 2 a.m. So technically April 11th is when I finished it. But it took me about 5 days to beat this game. And then I kept playing it for up until now. We're still making guides and crazy build videos just because the combat situation is offering endless replayability. Now, the irony if Square Enix does go ahead and get inspiration from Expedition 33, go back to turn-based and do a reactive-based turn-based system, it will be yet again another situation where Square Enix is essentially chasing trends, because that's just been what their company has been over the last few years. They, in the 90s, dominated in that field and were pioneers in a whole lot of things. I mean, Final Fantasy VII quite literally created AAA development within gaming, which is still a huge deal to this day. But now you see 4 years, 5 years down the line, whenever they finally finish their next game, if it is a turn-based game and it's reactive-based, who knows? What if by then everybody's decided that turn-based isn't cool anymore? I don't know. You never know with these things. And I don't want to stay too long on the topic, but if you ask me, in my opinion, I think Square Enix's biggest issues that they need to overcome is their marketing and barrier of entry. Marketing for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth was abysmal. It's some of the wildest decisions I've ever seen in my life, and that game was not marketed to general consumers, which in my opinion is the biggest bulk of what you should be targeting if you're trying to expand your reach. You got to be advertising your games to not people that are going to be playing your game anyways. But also there is barrier of entry. You guys already know it because you're fans and you play these games, but there's a lot of people that don't know that you don't need to play the first 16 Final Fantasies in order to enjoy Final Fantasy 17 whenever that comes out. There's still quite a lot of people. Even my wife very recently had no idea that Final Fantasies 1 through 6 have nothing to do with Final Fantasy 7. That's an actual thing. And that barrier simply alone, just that information not being known to the general public, is enough to turn a lot of people off. Now, I don't know exactly what they need to do to get over that, but having your games numbered to 17, 18, 19, and 20, man, it does get a little bit harder for some people to get into that. Now, when Final Fantasy 16 was coming out, we did see Square Enix put out some videos saying you don't need to actually play Final Fantasies 1 through 15 in order to play it, and many developers and directors actually said this in interviews. However, those were still being marketed to people that already are going to be playing the game. So again, I don't know. I really don't know at this point. I think Final Fantasy VII Remake and Rebirth's combat system is amazing. That's something that Square Enix should focus as their gold standard going forward, while also still retaining and doing some turn-based games and also spicing up the way that they do turn-based games. I think reactive-based is probably a great way to go about it. Not necessarily for offense and having to hit triggers as you're landing moves to make those moves be executed, but more so the defensive elements I think is a really fun way to go about it. And maybe do some balancing around the damage numbers. I mean, Expedition 33 did get a little bit wild towards the end there, but that was all the developers' plans for that. Expedition 33 definitely should be celebrated, man. It's a game that was made by 32 developers, only cost $50. It's currently I think it's currently sitting at 3.3 million total sold, and it's in a very strong conversation for Game of the Year, with the only other game that it's fighting against, at least at this current moment, is Death Stranding 2. So that just means Expedition 33 from now up until the end of the year, the week of Game Awards, and as these things are getting hyped up and thrown around, is going to continue to see more exposure and climb in that way. And also the lifespan of this game can be something really awesome. If you play through the story and you've seen the way that the game ends, the devs definitely have some plans for the future, and I think it's really exciting, and I can't wait to see what else it is that they have that they're going to be working on. I want to hear what you guys think about this. Let's comment down below in the discussion and have a talk about this, but also let's just be a little bit respectful. I've been seeing way too many aggressive and angry comments, so guys, we don't need to have any of that stuff here. Just, talk with each other. Don't come in here swinging and fighting amongst each other. There's a lot of great things to celebrate, a lot of good things to be happy about, and I prefer that we just keep it that way. Be sure to like the video if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you are new. More Clair Obscur and other gaming news videos.